Great. Okay. Welcome to the TVNC Destination Imagination Team Manager Training for Instant Challenge. First of all, tonight, if you'll go ahead and sign into chat with your full name, your campus, and what grades your kids are. We're going to leave everybody on mute, except that we're going to try to do some interactive things tonight and sort of see how that goes. And shooting for 90 minutes, we were hoping to be able to do a breakout room, as you may have heard, as you were, and the recording will pause during that, and then we'll come back together. So if that all works, we should be able to do this all in time. Okay, so tonight, what we're going to talk about is how important Instant Challenge is to the whole Destination Imagination program. So first of all, we're just going to talk about that creative process. We talked about it in the very first intro training. We're going to talk a little bit about that in terms of how it there are skills to the creative process that can be taught and magnified through the Instant Challenge portion of the Destination Imagination program. So you're going to leave with hopefully an understanding about what Instant Challenge is. You'll have a general overview of what the different types of Instant Challenges are. You're going to understand the importance of Instant Challenge, both from its formation of the team, of its, kind of bolstering skills and helping them really cement their problem-solving abilities, but also how important it is at tournament time in terms of your scoring. Then I'm going to give you just a plethora. I told Catherine today when I was sending all of the materials that, I apologize for the 195,000 handouts. A lot of these handouts are actually here and there on our website anyway, but this way you'll have them to look at tonight if you want to download them, if you're able to download them. I will be showing everything, but you'll also have them all in one place to be able to download them off our website tomorrow, or when Catherine gets that all done. So they'll be all sort of together so that you'll have everything we talk about tonight, and you'll know where to go for additional resources, of which there are bazillions. Oh, you know what? My note says, mention that there will be, maybe is. So this is an adaptation of my PowerPoint from year to year to year. There is a short online training, I think it's under 10 minutes, on the creative process and how to use creative problem-solving tools. And I'll show you where that is. I guess maybe I should show you that right now, because that way you'll know what I'm talking about. So I've talked about the team resources other times. We have an area called training videos, and that's where you'll find this year's training recordings and the handouts. So that's what Catherine was talking about. We have stuff from last year, which actually most of it is not even functional anymore. I wish we could have used some of last year's training over again this year, except last year was an all virtual training, all virtual tournament. So it was a lot of different stuff. But we have a YouTube channel that has some other videos, and there's one on Instant Challenge tips. We didn't produce that one. There's one on thinking tools and the creative process. And that is one that we created a couple of years ago. So some of the page numbers may not be valid for this year's roadmap, but the tools are all there. And it shows how to use different tools for different kinds of reasons, for if you need to brainstorm and generate ideas, or if you are, on the other hand, needing to focus down ideas. So I wanted to let you know where that is, and that's down at the bottom of this part, which is the training videos under resources. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight is first there's going to be discussion. I'm going to be yammering at you, and then we're gonna try to do a little bit of group activity, which is much easier to do in a live training in a big room. But we're gonna try this tonight, where everybody will unmute and we'll probably all be talking over each other. Hopefully then we'll break out to a couple small groups and do practice instant challenge. We're going to come back and debrief about that. And then when we used to be all in one room, we would go for like these 7-minute rotations where people moved around the room to 5 different stations. So obviously we can't do that, and it doesn't make sense to break out for that. So I'm just going to go through what was presented in those 5 rotations, but they're sort of 5 different areas of skill building to build those IC skills. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the creative problem solving process. So DI is all about inspiring and equipping students to become the next generation of innovators and leaders. The goal is to help student teams learn to be creative in every aspect of their lives and to become really global leaders in teaching the creative process from imagination to innovation. So that's what Destination Imagination is all about. How do we do that? We combine creative thinking and critical thinking. There should be a Y on there, to combine to make the creative problem solving. Oh, there's the Y. It wrapped. And on top of that, we're going to layer skills that your team is going to learn. Those skills could be anything from how to hammer a nail in, how to put together costumes, how to write a story, how to turn a story into script. All those are skills, but they're also going to learn skills that combine critical thinking and creative thinking to learn how to be better problem solvers. These are skills and tools that can be used throughout their lives. Right now in Destination Imagination, it's kind of fun to use these tools for different ways to generate a lot of ideas, or which is the creative thinking side, or to try to think through, plan, decide on pros and cons or strengths and weaknesses of an idea and all of that, which is the critical thinking part. And there are tools to be able to do that. So the creative problem solving process is, we talked about this the very first time when I said that your swimming pool was full of marbles. So initially you have to seek to understand what the points or issues of the challenge are. So you really need to delve into what each sentence or section means in the instant challenge that you're doing or the main challenge down the road. Then everybody should have a little bit of time to think on it. Some of us are rapid thinkers, some of us are deliberate thinkers. So it's a good idea if, as we talk about identifying the challenge, that we have a little bit of time to sort of think about it, take a creative pause, so that it gives our brains and our kind of gets us in the zone, I guess, to be able to then imagine. And the imagination stage is all about possibility thinking. And so this is where you would use idea generating tools. It's the time to start research on what's been done before that we can apply creative thinking to. So like, I think I might have talked about what is creativity. And I said, if you think about an architect, they have to know all the math and the physics and, the stress bearing and, all of that kind of stuff to be able to then layer on possibility thinking, right? let's say an artist has to know, how different colors are going to blend, or, if one material is going to repel another material, things like that. So learning about something helps us then kind of leap into the imagination stage. Next, as we individually use our brains and brainstorm, we also need to team up. We need to embrace the different approaches and styles of ideas and ways of thinking. So that was a big part of the part 2 intro training. And what we know is that most of our ideas are going to be better once we've talked it out, once we've talked with other people about it, once we've had more than one person, kind of put input and be able to really strengthen ideas. That leads us into the step 5, which is trying things out, trying out different ideas, see if we need to make changes along the way. You're gonna make mistakes and have to start over. And so this is the scariest time for team managers, where you really want to, it's hard not to interfere. It's hard not to put your hands in as kids are trying things that are obviously not going to work. And of course, we talked about how you can question them. Okay, if it's not standing up, what's the problem? What do we need to do? You can't think of what we might need to do? Well, let's look at things that stand up on their own. Do they have a strong base? Do they have a backing, like a brace behind a picture frame? Are they using hinges to be able to have two things open up and like a book and hold us up? So some of that is, the sort of trial and error. And then the final stage of the creative process really is evaluating. Does this solution meet the criteria? So part of it is, as we're putting all the bits and pieces and all the creative juices and all the fun costumes and the silly story and the crazy characters, that along the way we need to be evaluating and making sure that we are right back here to 1, making sure that we are meeting all of the identified challenges that we have, or identified issues that we need to work on. But then, of course, we also, towards the end of the season, and certainly after the tournament, it's important to evaluate as a team. Did we meet our goals? Did we get the points we thought we would get? Did we come together as a team? And did we learn from our mistakes and our triumphs? All right, so let's go a little more practical now to specifically what our topic is, which is instant challenge. So basically, instant challenge is the whole DI creative problem solving process in 5 to 10 minutes. So usually an instant challenge is 5 to 10 minutes in length. It allows these kids to learn to think on their feet, to solve quickly, to learn to work together as a team more efficiently, to really be able to capitalize on each other's strengths and mitigate each other's weaknesses. So instant challenge is actually a separate part of the tournament. So you'll have your team challenge performance time, and that's where the team will actually bring their props and they'll have their costumes on, and they will come into a room. They will perform their skit that has all of the things that their challenge is required to have, plus some cool fun additions called team choice elements. Those are the things we talk about in our next training, which I guess is a week from tonight, next Thursday on the 11th, all about understanding the challenge. So every team that is at the same level, like elementary or middle school or high school, doing the same team challenge. So if you're doing the engineering challenge, elementary, then all of the other teams doing elementary engineering are going to also do the same instant challenge in a separate room at a separate time and area of the tournament. And I know we're talking about how exactly we're going to do the tournament. Usually in years past, it has been at like a couple of hours difference. We may be having teams go straight from team challenge into an instant challenge room and just doing it back to back. So I'm not sure exactly how that will work yet, but we'll be able to tell you more about that as the season goes on. None of the teams know what that instant challenge will be until it is presented to them in the instant challenge room. And where in the team challenge performance, we love to have spectators, all the moms and the dads and teachers and grandmas and grandpas and principals, everybody watching the team do their skit. But once they move into the instant challenge portion of the competition, it is only the team, one team manager, and the appraisers for that instant challenge in a room. And when the team comes out of their instant challenge at tournament, they are not allowed to talk about it. In fact, they take a pledge that they will not talk about it except privately amongst themselves and with their team managers. So not at the tournament site ever. But later when you've left, not at a restaurant that's near the tournament site, that's a bad idea. And outside of the tournament site. One of the reasons that this portion of the competition is so important is that instant challenge is about 25% of the overall score when teams are ranked in their challenge, their level at the end of each day of the tournament day. How instant challenge works is that the team stands around a table with a copy of the challenge face down on the table. If the instant challenge has materials, those will be on the table too. And the team may not touch them until the timer starts. When the announcer timekeeper person says, the time starts, that's the first that the team can actually touch anything. So one of the appraisers will tell the team that they can turn over their copy of the challenge, and then that appraiser is actually going to read the challenge out loud one time through with the team reading along. If the team has questions, they have to wait until the timer starts, which will happen as soon as that appraiser finishes reading, so that the team will have an opportunity. Like if they don't understand what a word means, they can ask for the definition of a word or something like that. But most of the time, if they ask a question, the appraiser will tell them, look in section 2, number B or letter B. That's where you'll read that part again. So the team needs to become good at being able to read all kinds of different instant challenges, to be able to listen and understand. So that's one of the skills we're going to build. The team isn't allowed to bring in any timing devices, including wristwatches or any kind of phones or anything. Like nobody can film this. The team manager can't have their phone with them. So a team member can ask for how much time is left if they choose to, and we'll talk about team member roles, and that might be one person's role is to just kind of keep track of time. The scoring is always listed directly on the copy of the challenge, and after the timer stops, the appraisers will retreat to their own table to score the team's solution. So the team knows as they're, in fact, the scoring is read to them when the appraiser is reading this whole thing out loud. So they know exactly what they're going to get scored on. And it's not near as many elements as the actual big team challenge, obviously. It's just going to be a few things. Another thing that's really different from the main challenge is that the appraisers are not going to ask questions or interact with the team in any way. They're going to observe and they're going to, want to make sure that they can hear everything and that they can see what the team is doing. So they may hover around the team a little bit, but they will not interact with the team. So it's very different from the skit or the performance portion of the main challenge, where the appraisers get right down and look at things up close and talk to the kids. How did you do that? And that's a really cool part of the other, the main challenge. But in Instant Challenge, there's no interaction. So there is a section of Rules of the Road that has comprehensive rules about how Instant Challenge is run at the tournament. We'll talk more about it in our pre-tournament training in February, but I want you to understand that that's sort of the format for how an Instant Challenge is at tournament. But we're a long way from tournament right now. So what we're going to learn tonight is how you can help coach Instant Challenge, how you can practice Instant Challenge with your team. This is the one time or the one aspect of Destination Imagination where you can interfere away, because whatever Instant Challenge the teams are facing at the tournament will be brand new, never seen before. They're written directly for each year's tournament season. So anything that you're practicing along the way through the season, you can get right in there and show your kids, some of the ways to use materials, how to do things. It's something that you should be doing every week. Most teams think of Instant Challenge practice as a reward or fun. It is a great way to start off team meetings so that, it kind of gets everybody in the groove. We're going to have you start simple and get more complex so that you can teach the skills. And we have a slew of what seems like games, but they truly are skill builders surrounding how to read and understand the challenge, how to listen to each other. We have a whole segment on listening exercises. It is the perfect avenue to teach performance skills and analytical skills. Like, you can talk to them about breaking it all down so that they know, some teams don't even do tournament style instant challenges towards the end of the season. They do 3 or 4 of them in a meeting, but the team manager may have 2 or 3 others where all they do is talk about what, break the challenge down. What's important here? Where do we get score? Should we take a risk? And not actually go through solving all of them. They're going to learn about preparation skills. They're certainly going to learn self-governance because in the Instant Challenge room, the team manager is sitting off to the corner and nobody's helping the kids at all. So they are going to truly be on their own. The debrief is as important as doing the Instant Challenge. So we're going to show you the sort of reflection questions, how to reflect and debrief after doing an Instant Challenge. And many times experienced team managers will have a whole nother set of the materials. They'll have like 2 baggies. One of them is the first time the team does this Instant Challenge, and the team manager reads it to them. The team looks at their copy of it. They look at the materials on the table. They, try within the time to solve the challenge. And depending on how well or not well they do, the team debriefs about it and talks about what they could have done better. What could we have used these materials for instead? And the team manager will bring out a second baggie and put all of the same stuff down on the table and say, okay, try again. See if you really learned and if you're able to implement the things that you decided that you could have done better. Another thing is to come back to instant challenges that a team already did. sometime later in the season and discuss the improvement between then and now, at least hopefully, right? And so, or you might start off with some simple instant challenges, and then later in the season, bring back an instant challenge like that, but add complexity. And you're going to learn about how to do that. It's also important that the kids critique themselves in that debriefing. And so a great way for the kids to be able to do that is to go ahead and video them as they work on an instant challenge, and let them watch the video before any other debriefing, before you tell them how you think they did, and let them watch themselves and say, oh, we shouldn't have, used up all the mailing labels so soon, or whatever, so it's very illustrative if they can watch themselves. We actually are going to have a little bit of one of our rotations on the topic of team member roles as we go today. But there's a reference page in the roadmap. We also have a handout that you'll have at the end of the night. But basically, as you and they watch each other do instant challenges, it's going to become pretty clear who are the builders and who are the destroyers. A destroyer should not mess with materials on the table until the builders, they can voice an idea, but they shouldn't be messing with things and so forth. On the flip side, there may be some team members who are really good at being able to come up with a funny story, or, sort of have the acting bug, so then they're going to take the lead when it's a performance type of instant challenge. So each, like I said, each instant challenge has the scoring on the bottom of it. And in the instant challenge part of the roadmap, there are questions that give you sort of a suggestion on how to score the two kinds of elements. So some are objective elements, and they're easy to score. It's like if the instant challenge says build a bridge, and for every inch you get 5 points. Well, so however tall it is when time stops, if it's 10 inches tall, well, they got 50 points, right? So that's easy to measure. But then there are a lot of subjective points in most instant challenges. So there will be creativity of the use of materials. It will be the creativity of the storyline. It might be how well the team worked together. In fact, almost every instant challenge has up to 20 points for how well the team works together. So obviously a very subjective kind of a score. So you're able to, kind of use your own rubric or scoring graph as you're working with your team. But I would suggest that you be, somewhat gentle at the beginning of the season and brutal by the end of the season with your honest, scoring of how a team did, because they should be progressing. So the roadmap, when you get it, will also have not only a section on what instant challenge is and tips and tricks and explanations, but there will also be a bunch of practice instant challenges. Then we also have a whole slew of instant challenges from prior years. Under the resources tab on our TVNC website, we also have several links to some other states or regions who have really good instant challenge resource materials too. So like you're never going to run out of possible instant challenges. We also, I know, do a fun thing in the newsletter that TVNC is going to be sending out throughout the season, maybe not exactly every single week, but we always add an instant challenge of the week. So you'll be able to to utilize those too. And sometimes they're sort of seasonal or topical. And then if you think that's not good enough, you can actually make your own. You can make some of the, as you use all these resources for instant challenges, you can really simplify at the beginning of the season, or you can go for the really complex ones later in the season. You can adapt ones that you see. It's like, it says that you have to have, 2 feathers and a whoopee cushion. Well, if you don't have a whoopee cushion, find something else that makes noise, maybe a whistle or something else, you can always substitute materials. And sometimes you can use the same instant challenge over and over again and, just switch out a bunch of the materials, especially with performance type ones. Okay, so there is a really cool tool that is in the roadmap. I think that we have some of these creative problem solving tools on our website in the resources. This is called the mix and match tool. And so what you do with this is you say, okay, column A is our materials. Column B is we're going to make something that will do something. Maybe we have a place and a situation. Maybe if this is one that isn't, so this would be like a performance type one, but maybe we have, materials that can be damaged in column A, materials that shouldn't be, that can't be damaged in column B. And we're going to make in column C, and column D is that will, move or move one item to another location, or span between 2 bricks, or hold a golf ball, or hold nails. And then the other could be either a measurement like a height, or a width, or a distance, something like that. So as you see instant challenges that you practice with, you'll be able to make a grid, and the kids can make up their own instant challenges from a grid like this. And I think they'd have a good time doing that. But you're probably overwhelmed and thinking, I don't even know what we're talking about yet, hardly. So I have this slide in here because I think that if you present this concept to your team about what instant challenge, the focus that instant challenge requires, for the next small amount of time, we will focus on this challenge. Everything we do and everything we say will be for the purpose of solving the problem in front of us. We will listen, we will think, we will succeed. And this would be a great sort of pep talk to give them right before they go into the instant challenge room at the tournament. But if they are used to sort of this being the very first thing that y'all say together as a team before they start working on an instant challenge, it could be very powerful for the team to like get into the zone and all agree to that this is what we're doing right now. Okay, so let's play with this. Okay, this is where the first handout called Instant Challenge Like Brainstorming Prompts comes in. Okay, and let me make this bigger. Maybe not quite that big. Okay, so at the beginning of the season, probably you just need to get the kids to learn to be and to trust each other, to just like let their imaginations fly. So these are just a prompt to like go around the room. And if somebody gets stuck, you know, you can decide at the beginning of the season, then, you know, after 2 or 3 seconds, great, just, you know, they can pass. But after a couple of weeks, I think if somebody's stuck, the team is stuck, you know, that pressure of not being able to, you know, kind of come up with an idea is what eventually they need to break through. So name things that are blue. Okay, throw in the chat things that are blue. My feelings, Bob. The sky. Blueberries. Water. Somebody's eyes. A pool, okay. A blue bonnet. Cheese, I like blue cheese. I love blue cheese. A Red Bull can. Hey, look at, see how fast they're coming now? And that's what your kids will be doing. It's like, you know, that first idea, it's like, I don't know, I've got so many ideas, I can't think of one. That's what we want to get them used to, is just throwing out an idea. So some of these get harder as you go. So name other uses for a mousetrap other than catching mice. Name uses for a jack-o'-lantern after Halloween. Name things that reflect and what they reflect. Mirrors reflect images, actions reflect motives. So that gets, you know, into like a two-parter. Name things that fly and what they fly to. Okay, so let's do that one. Name things that fly and what they fly to. All right, go. An arrow to a target. My imagination of Mars. Look at how fast you're going. Airplanes to other places. June bugs into walls. I love that. A dart to a board. Alice to the moon. Oh, that's cute. Moths to light. There you go. So that's exactly what we're talking about, is just kind of getting the kids, and you'll see there's like 100 of these. Okay, there's 72 of these. That's almost 100. So you could do 2 or 3 of these. In fact, you can do things like this. If you take the team to Lowe's, do this stuff in the car. Do this stuff with your kids in the car. I mean, it makes, if you have a driving to family on Thanksgiving time, I used to lots of times take the younger siblings of kids who were going to, of teams who were going to global finals. I would have like the younger siblings in my van, and I would do these just thinking starters, these little prompts. Little kids can do these, you know. So that is a fun, put it down. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you is we're going to crawl, walk, run. At the beginning of the season, really, this is what you want to do, is this kind of stuff where you're really just brainstorming and, you know, just having fun going around the room, you know, throwing ideas out there. But pretty quick, we need to have them understand. So I would say even from the beginning of the season, you might want to have, and this is a handout, so I don't know if you've already put that up in chat or not. You might have the team doing some simple instant challenges with scoring and the whole bit. But so at level 2, they're gonna then choose the one that they think is the best. So out of straight brainstorming, they're gonna choose one, and you're gonna give them maybe a minute to come to consensus and plan, and then 1 minute to describe to the judge, you know, why they thought that one was the best. Level 3 is where we're going to actually add an improv story or a scenario, and then a couple of minutes to perform it. And at level 4, these are like advanced tournament level kinds of instant challenges where they have complex directions. They may have, in the first 5 minutes, you're going to build a bridge that spans, at least 2 bricks that are at least 18 inches apart. And we're going to measure at the end of part 1. In part 2, you'll have 2 more minutes to here's the scenario, and now you're going to perform a skit that has something to do with your bridge and what it spans, say. And at that point, you want to make sure you're enforcing the tournament style procedures and really timing them, like not letting them touch the materials until you say go, and timing them and being, not fudging on the time and being brutal with the scoring, So this is in the last couple of weeks, and this is right now. And then in the whole middle of the season is where you're going to be able to do this. So what am I talking about here? Okay. Here's how you can take the same instant challenge through the season, adding these levels of complexity. So at level 1, let's invent a new ice cream flavor. So each team member is going to answer as many times as they want to, and all you do is get a teamwork score. If all the team members have the opportunity to answer and are contributing, then we get a decent teamwork score. So I do this in a room. It's usually a breakout. And as adults in a training session, we can have all kinds of adult subject matter, like, maybe an ice cream that has alcohol in it, or mood enhancing substances, or something like that. One of my favorites one year was a group of team managers who, huddled for 3 minutes. I probably gave them 3 minutes to do this. And they came up with Gym Socks ice cream. Now, lots of times groups will come up with, habanero pepperoni pizza ice cream, because they're thinking very literal of something that you could actually eat. But this one time, this group came up with Gym Socks ice cream. Gym Socks ice cream is basically composed of, it has toenail crunch, it has a toe jam swirl, it has a cotton flavor, blah, blah, blah. It was disgusting. Another time, somebody had mood ring ice cream. So depending on, when you put it onto your tongue, it would change color depending on, your mood. It was purple if you were happy. It was, yellow if you were upset or whatever. So that was really fun. So what you're trying to get your teams to is mood ring and Gym Socks, not habanero pepperoni. Now, in level 2, okay, so we got past, boring ice cream flavors, and we've come up with something really gross, disgusting, or funny. So now we're going to go to level 2 and use maybe some of the CPS tools, maybe the chooser tool, maybe maybe the attribute pairing tool. I really liked the the toenail crunch, but I think it's too gross, and I think the appraisers might think it was too gross. Couldn't we make those pebbles instead? So the team is gonna now pick the best one, maybe combine a couple of ideas into one new thing, and then they get another minute to really think about its ingredients, or maybe even an unusual manufacturing process. Now I could bring this same instant challenge back out, and I could say, okay, you have a performance instant challenge. You have 4 minutes to invent a new ice cream flavor, determine its ingredients, and then develop a commercial to sell this flavor to the public. The team must present its commercial in 2 minutes. So you see, that's sort of like a full-blown instant challenge. When we get to level 4, where it would be at a tournament, then you might also add a part 2 where the team must use typical instant challenge materials to either depict the machine that makes the ice cream or represents a scoop of the ice cream flavor or whatever. And then here's tournament style scoring. So I'll give you a second just to look at that, because this is much like what an instant challenge looks like. It's sort of this part with a part 2 and scoring. Most instant challenges add up to 100 points. Sometimes if they have something with measurements and a team really knocks it out of the park, it'll go over that.
Margaret, are you going to talk about the teamwork points?
Yeah, let's talk about the teamwork points. I'll tell you what how I train appraisers about teamwork points. I remind them that teamwork can be noisy and sometimes a little messy. You may have there are different roles, and we're going to talk about sort of the roles that are important to have represented in an instant challenge room by the team. But somebody's got to keep the team on task, and somebody's got to make sure we are doing everything that we are thinking about how creative, because we want those 30 points. Okay, so teamwork would include the people that the team is engaged, that if somebody is kind of off to the side, maybe this is a task-based challenge and they're a destroyer, not a builder. And if that kid can learn to say, okay, I'm backing off because I shouldn't touch the materials until you tell me what you want me to do. That would be an evidence of good teamwork, as versus if the appraisers see some kid just kind of sulk off to the edge, they'll think that the team was not including that person and it wasn't good teamwork. On the flip side, as the team is developing a story, say, there may be actors and sort of script writers. And so you'll want your actor types to await being told what to do. So it's really just a matter of learning the different strengths that the team brings and making sure that the appraisers can hear, like this, the team should be loud, plenty loud to be heard. This is not like having to talk quietly in this small group in the classroom. Nobody should hear us. They should talk full force so that the appraisers can hear what they're doing, see what they're doing. And when somebody is not actively doing something, maybe all they're doing is asking how much more time is left, but they're still involved. Is that anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I'd like to add a couple things. So every single instant challenge will have points for how well the team works together, every single one. And my team got to the point where I would read the whole thing out and I would read the scoring and I would come to that last one and I would say, and 20 points for, and they all knew to, chime in with how well the team works together. And I think it's easy to devalue that when you're practicing instant challenge, because there's a creativity and there's the how tall and how to make a ball do this or whatever. But the thing of it is that there have been instances where the instant challenge is so difficult that a lot of teams couldn't do what they were supposed to do, right? And so the only points they could get in some instances were teamwork points. And there's also kind of the flip side of that is, that's a frustrating thing, right? You can't get the thing to work that you're trying to get it to work. And so you got to really kind of keep it together. But I've seen where there have been where nobody got the instant challenge and the only people who got points were teams that worked well together.
Right. And I hate instant challenges where that happens, because when you see that at the end of a tournament, you're like, well, that was a badly written instant challenge. So, but it can happen, especially at the elementary age, if there's, if they really didn't get it. And the appraisers are trained to be able to say, if the team really is going off in the wrong direction, to be able to say, team, I think you should reread this section. But the appraisers are not going to tell them you did it wrong or you stepped over the line 12 times. If there's a boundary and the team is not allowed to step over that line, then you better have a kid on the team whose job it is to stand on the line and make sure, and anybody gets close to the line, say, not over the line, don't go over the line. And that would be an excellent teamwork, especially for a kid who's a destroyer, not a builder. So this handout that you have has another one that you can do with your kids, which is, level 1, level 2, level 3, and ultimately level 4 scoring. So this will be a good handout that will help you take really any kind of instant challenge and kind of break it out into how do I do it easily at the beginning of the season, and how do I really do it as a tournament style towards the end of the season. Okay. Oh, I lost my PowerPoint thing. Here we go. Okay. So we are going to break out into groups, but before we do that, I want to show you the instant challenge that we're going to do. And I believe Catherine has already put this. Why won't that let me take that? Here it is. Has already put this. So if you can download this, or if not, maybe take a screenshot. But this is our instant challenge. It's one designed to be done virtually, and it's called Unexpected Mishaps. The challenge is to create and present a performance about a day when unexpected mishaps occur. Your performance should incorporate up to 4 mishaps. Mishaps are listed on page 2. Your performance should explain why on this day the mishap occurred. And your performance should explain what happens to people in a set of photos after the mishaps occur. So we're going to open I'm gonna go to the next thing to show the 5 mishaps to include in your performance. So hopefully somebody in each group is able to, look at this and see this. So we're going to break out basically for what did I tell you, Catherine? Did I say 6 minutes?
You said 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay. Which is what this says. So 4 minutes to open or to look at the pictures, plan your performance, and then 3 minutes to present your performance. So you're going to do this in your group. And you're going to go ahead and plan it, and then somebody should be the timer. At the 4-minute mark, stop, and then do your performance as a group, just for yourselves. Okay?
Margaret, you are muted.
Okay. I'm sharing my screen again. So we're gonna just quick look at our challenge. In our room, I was in our room, so I didn't want to like lead it. But we had a couple of people pretty familiar with Instant Challenge and a couple of newbies. So we talked a lot about a lot of options, but we didn't ever actually get to our performance. How about the other group? Did you?
No, we didn't actually perform. We just talked about what we thought, how they were all connected and what we could do.
Okay, so why doesn't the other group tell us what your plan was? What was your plan?
Do you want me to volunteer?
Sure.
Okay. We decided near the end that the woman reading the paper was the key to the story, and that she was reading news articles from events that had happened yesterday, and this yellow ball had caused havoc all over town, and by the end it may have even caused havoc on her cereal. So
That's good. You got farther than we got. Ken, do you want to kind of talk about what we were doing?
Not really. I'll be honest with you, I found this way more challenging than I thought it would be. So we talked about that we were going to a sporting event, and by not paying attention to things, along the way, these different mishaps happen.
So our plan was going to be that we were going to be different characters who were like, I was rushing so fast I fell off my skateboard, or, we were running and dropped the ice cream, or I ran out in front of, a group of kids playing and I got hit in the face. But Abby had actually a really fun idea, which was maybe cause and effect, which was that the hockey check happened first, and it was so, it was like a sonic boom, and it caused all of the other things to happen. So that was kind of fun too.
Yeah.
We never got to the performance.
No, we didn't.
So now does it make sense that where we're going to start is getting better at brainstorming,
Absolutely.
learning the skills, maybe getting better at what our roles are, and learning the process of sort of moving through. So that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, so part of the scary thing was that we had a definitive time limit. And so I'm going to suggest that you do some things that give kids a sense of certain time limits. I'm going to suggest that you maybe get an instant challenge buddy to help you plan for instant challenges and collect the materials. That's a great way for a parent who is not able to help the team, maybe working and not, able to get there when the team is meeting or something like that. And we're going to talk for a minute about what Ken said. Wow, this is harder than I thought it would be. Why don't team managers schedule in IC and do them frequently? It sounds like such a fun idea, and as the season goes on and the central challenge, the main challenge, gets more demanding and time gets tight, some team managers start to skimp on the instant challenge time. Sometimes people don't practice instant challenge because they have to find new ones all the time. That's where it's a good idea to get an IC buddy. There are a bazillion of them. It's a hassle to have to round up all the materials. I will tell you that if you wanted to do every single one of the practice challenges in the roadmap, it gives you a list of the materials that you will need to gather to be able to do every single one of those. So that's helpful. A lot of team managers just start to collect in a bin or a cabinet or something, the usual kinds of things. And the more you read, instant challenges, you'll see what usual materials are like: spaghetti, pencils, paper clips, clothespins, chenille sticks, popsicle sticks, balloons, feathers, ping pong balls. I mean, that, cotton balls, you'll toothpicks, and Q-tips. I guess you're supposed to call them something generic. I don't know. So kind of getting materials, 3x5 cards, that's another one. And newspaper, collect newspaper. So as you start to just sort of round up materials, you'll be able to pull things out on the fly. And if you don't have something that a challenge specifically calls for, you can substitute something else. Sometimes teams don't take it seriously. Sometimes the kids don't buckle in, and that's where that little mantra, I think, is a good thought, a good idea. And sometimes it's hard to, we're not all teachers. So just sort of planning the times, the structure of meetings to include real instant challenge practice and focus work on the central challenge, all in one, hour and a half meeting or whatever. Sometimes it's a hassle because there are team member issues, like they don't listen to each other. So we're going to talk about listening exercises, and we're going to make listening fun. Sometimes one person takes over. We're going to talk about the roles and how to understand how, if you attended the personality style and way of thinking portion of last training last week, then you know that you can help direct those bossy kids to, to certain kinds of roles, but maybe they don't have to take over and be the boss of everyone all the time. Sometimes it's because kids don't understand what to do. I mean, this was hard to spring on you if you've never seen an instant challenge before, like, okay, here's 5 things you have to do and 5 pictures that you have to do them with. Now go and do it in 6 minutes, Sometimes kids get pretty focused on their main challenge and they don't want to do instant challenge. I think it's more often that a team manager gets pretty focused on the main challenge and forgets to do instant challenge. Some teams sort of drop into 2 or 3 kind of subgroups or cliques even almost, and they tend to work independently of each other and don't really appreciate each other. That's, if that's sort of a personality and a team behaviors kind of thing that I would, think that you'd want to sort of sit down and talk about and figure out ways to get them to working more together. Sometimes a team member will like shut down if their idea isn't accepted. So we need to help them learn to be able to contribute. And, if we go right back to, level 1 and do a whole lot of brainstorming, I think that's going to really ease that situation. And sometimes it's that, a couple of team members just don't participate at all. They're too shy. They don't know what to do. Somebody else is taking over and they just recede. And those are issues where you can help the team. Like I said, you can't interfere. So you can help talk about, well, how did you feel? How did that go? Why did you guys act that way towards him? And we have a very funny, we have a handout in the team building section on our website, which is team building games for specific situations. And there's a great one for instant challenges where you, the team manager, put something on the back, tape it on the back that's like a little sign. Here's your sign that, says, nobody will listen to me, or every idea I have is the best idea, or I'm not going to let anyone talk, or nobody's listening to me, or whatever. And you can choose to sort of put the opposite thing on certain backs, or maybe you can, the person who just never lets anybody else talk, you put it on their back and everybody's like, well, so the kid doesn't know what's on their back, but the rest of the team has to react to that kid with what is on their back. So it can be very illustrative and it can be pretty fun. It can also really be a gateway to opening up and talking about what roles there are. Okay, so now let's talk about these actual skills. 818, oh my God. Okay. The first one is listening exercises. And I would start this like this week. This is a great handout. And it starts with just literally sitting in a circle and counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And after 30 seconds, you start clapping. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. You start going faster. They have to keep up with you. And if anybody screws up, it's like, start over. It sounds silly, but it is a very, it's fun, and it really shows the kids that it's hard to listen and think at the same time. then the next level of that is, you know, going around and saying your own name, and then maybe each other's names, and maybe randomly across the circle. There's another one in here that's Throw It to Me, which is very funny, where everybody's walking around the room and you pantomime throwing a, like a ninja star, you know, and you go, so you make that whooshing sound. And then the person who you looked at has to pretend to catch the knife and go, oh, and then they look around and they find somebody else that they're going to zero in, and they go, and they pretend to throw the knife, and it goes around. Then you toss the baby. So you're not going to toss a baby the same way you would toss a knife, right? Or maybe you have an angry cat. What does an angry cat sound like? So each one has a distinct sound and a distinct throwing style. So that's a really fun game, and they get how fun it is, but this is concentrating on each other. Everybody's played this before. Next year for Halloween, I'm going on a picnic and I'm going to bring an apple. I'm going to bring an apple and a banana. I'm going to bring an apple and a banana and a cherry. So you've all played that. Here's some other prompts that is the same thing. And of course, everybody has to repeat all the previous items, you know, every time until you get to the end. Another one is anybody, one of the team members or you can read a list of instructions and they need to write down what they heard. And so it can be a recipe, it can be a how-to, it could be directions, but just some kind of instructions, written instructions that somebody is reading and the rest of the team has to write it down. And you're going to find out how hard it is to listen and, you know, write all the steps. Then there's a couple of other games, including one that's like a chant kind of thing that's really fun. So that is listening exercises. I would suggest that you do at least one of these very easy ones every meeting for a couple of weeks, you know, and then keep adding some complexity, or, you know, or making them harder. You know, obviously adding to the list is harder than just counting around the circle. Okay, so that's that one. The next thing is, so I'm obviously not doing this in order. The next thing is reading for understanding. This is a page out of the roadmap. I don't know what page it is this year, but it is part of the Instant Challenge section. And this is where I was describing when you first look at an Instant Challenge that you're teaching the kids what an Instant Challenge is. This is what you're gonna do. First, you're gonna say, okay, we're gonna define what type of Instant Challenge is it? Is it a task where we have things that we have to build, or, you know, bridge, or hold weight, or, you know, whatever? Or is it performance? And some performance has things like you might have on a table a frying pan and a rubber glove and a toilet paper roll and a ruler and a shower cap. And the team has to do a performance around using as many of these in unusual and creative ways to tell the story of, you know, Little Bo Peep. So, and part of that is what has to be done at the end of the Instant Challenge and what elements of this Instant Challenge receive score. So if you dissect an Instant Challenge with your team and talk about those, then here you're going to talk about, well, how much time are we going to spend generating ideas, and what ideas do we have, and how can the materials be used? So you can see when you're learning how to do Instant Challenge, you're not going to be able to do this in a 3-minute planning period, right? You're going to have to, as a team, really talk it through. You know, what are the materials and what can they be used for? Lucky for you, I have a couple of tips on how to train that kind of thing. Then they're going to actually complete the Instant Challenge at some point, and then you're going to discuss it afterwards. So maybe this is, you know, this is step one as we start the season, doing just this much of the analysis. Then as the season goes on and they get good at generating ideas, they get good at knowing how materials can be used, they get good at being able to get a simple story in a short period of time, then you're actually, they're doing a full-blown instant challenge, 1 or 2 every week. That doesn't mean that you stop doing the listening exercises. So that's that handout. Okay, the next one is, let's talk about team roles. This is a handout that you have that talks about what different kinds of roles there are. So somebody should be the person who is reading along and keeping track. Somebody should be sort of the project manager. Somebody should be kind of keeping track of time and making sure that the team kind of uses their time wisely. Somebody should be making sure that we are hitting the scoring points. It helps if this person is good at math. That's funny. If the time does not run out before the team is finished and the team finishes and they want to be scored right now while that bridge is still standing, one person should be appointed as the person who calls time so that somebody doesn't do that prematurely. I talked about this boundary checker, the person who makes sure nobody's putting their toes over the line. Maybe somebody who knows, who's really making sure that we know what materials we have, that all the materials that they said we'd have are there, and that they're being used. And then there's the builders versus the story writers, the singers and actors. There might be people who have sort of sub roles or more than one role. I think this is a funny example. Somebody good at tearing paper into strips. If you have to use one piece of paper and have that piece of paper stretch as long as possible, there are ways to do that that are amazing. Okay, so you're not going to decide for them these things. They're going to decide with you by doing instant challenges, talking about these roles, and being able to also, through that personality styling and just working together along the way, this is going to shake out and you're going to probably lead them in certain sort of directions for roles. Okay, the next one is properties of materials. This is something that came from Destination Imagination. It's really cool, and we have it on our website, and you'll have it, to reference. But it's a really fun bunch of activities that show how to use different materials. So if you don't have any, make sure you don't have anybody who's allergic to latex, but how can you create a pendulum? How can you use one balloon to launch another balloon? So there's a whole bunch of activities that are just playing with balloons to see how you can use them. Same thing with chenille stems and straws and newsprint and different kinds of cups, paper cups versus plastic cups, solo cups versus styrofoam cups, ways you can use foil, popsicle sticks, stickers like mailing labels, or name tag labels are the typical kinds of labels that you'll see on an instant challenge table. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you get marshmallows, if you mush a marshmallow in half, or kind of break it in half, and gum it around in your mouth, it makes an excellent glue source or base to hold something tight to the table. Just saying, it's gross, but it works. So this is a great handout. We also, I'm assuming it went into chat, a couple of years ago, there was a young woman who, as a part of a scholarship application, she did a whole sort of tutorial on different kinds. Yeah, this is that link that just went into chat. It's real fun. It's sort of in a PowerPoint type interactive presentation. So use that too. Right, what's my last one? Then as you get down in the season a little bit, there's a handout that we have, which is how to up the skill level of being able to do a performance type instant challenge. And it gives you a whole lot of ideas of how you can have some story genres, like the quest for something precious, or a disaster movie, or an expert giving a demonstration, that your team can pull, oh, this instant challenge would be great for an expert giving a demonstration. And then we'll have, you know, the other characters be, you know, the Vanna White, or the attending nurse, or the, you know, whatever it is. So if you have some stock stories that your story templates that your team can start to play with, maybe everybody on your team should work on a character or two that they can insert into every, you know, any kind of performance instant challenge. So it's like, you know, you really have to like totally commit to that character. So you gotta overact, you gotta add in, you know, age, physical characteristics, accents, gestures, movements. So these are some crazy characters that your team could practice, you know, being a valley girl, being a split personality and disagreeing with everything you say to yourself. I love that one. Maybe a toddler who talks in baby talk. Then maybe people have different favorites, like something that they can fall back on that they know a lot about. Like if you have a kid who knows everything about space, then, you know, throwing in something about space into, you know, something that's also underwater, you know, can really up the creativity level if you add some facts or some you know, different settings and that kind of thing. So it's where they can fall back on to get some inspiration. There's some ideas about story development. There's a story creation exercise in here. And then there's a sort of a planning worksheet. So you can, as a team, you can kind of work through this worksheet as some activities to do with your team. So that's a really powerful one. Okay, so I went 3 minutes over. That was everything I had to provide tonight. It's hard to do this when we're not in a room. I can't tell if you're like getting what I'm talking about because we didn't get to do this. Our instant challenge training was a 2-hour training, and we actually got to go around to these different rotations, to these different things, and we had an expert going through the handout, and we were trying things, and it was a lot more fun than just listening to me talk. But I want to encourage you to go ahead and look at all these materials and start to you know, intersperse your team meeting planning with these kinds of activities, which are going to build those skills that your team is going to need for instant challenge, and also make the instant challenge process much less frustrating and much more successful for your team as they head towards the tournament. I have 2 hidden slides, which are that in years past, we've been able to have group activities like an instant challenge scrimmage or a skill building you know, as a workshop or something. At this point, we're not doing any of that this year. We're pretty sure that we're not even going to be able to do that in the, you know, in January or whatever. But individuals among us can come out and work with your team and maybe do a whole instant challenge, you know, kind of workshop with your team. If your teams are in close proximity with other teams from your school, You know, we could maybe get a couple of teams together, or you can, and mix, you know, let one team watch another team do an instant challenge, and then the team that was watching gets a similar kind of instant challenge and the other team watches and they give each other feedback. So there's lots of ways to build the skills, to do the exercises, and certainly your kids are going to have fun with it. Instant challenge is fun. So that's my spiel. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Do we have any questions? And we may want to stop the recording